is Hernández. I'm a scientist at LIMS. Welcome to my talk entitled LIMS Enable Biobanks Achieve ISO 20387 Accreditation. First, let's define what a biobank is. Well, a biobank is a laboratory facility that accepts, processes, stores, distributes samples and data for use by research institutions. Biobanks manage biological samples such as blood, tissue, saliva, plasma, cells, and the related information, and they can be used by third-party research institutions for research purposes. For example, when they are developing treatments for several diseases, or when they are studying genetic changes that may increase the person's risks for several illnesses like osteoporosis, asthma, or some cancers. The role is to store these collections and to keep biospecimens in a safe physical location while maintaining quality so that researchers can access them and the data associated with these biospecimens. So to operate effectively, biobanks need trained and competent staff. That staff must follow predefined SOPs to manage and store samples while maintaining their quality. So biobanks should maintain sample records and documentation of all biobanking activities for future reference, historical continuity, or internal and external audits. So, as I mentioned before, biobanks store several types of biological materials, but also they store the data derived from these biological materials. And this data could be clinical history, this gives us information about the patient and his lifestyle, also physical exam with the doctor, or some results from laboratory studies. They also store demographics. These can include the gender, the age, ethnicity, or geographic location of the patient or donor. Also, family history. With this data, the researchers can get health information from the family of the patient, such as, for example, the parents or the grandparents of the children. And this is really important for some research that it could use the genetic history for them. Also, they can store sample collection procedures. With this, the researchers get information about the preparation of the patient, also the collection, processing, and storing of the specimen. The biobanks also are responsible for managing the informed consent. This type of consent they are so important in clinical research to meet established compliances. And the goal of the informed consent is to enable competent individuals to decide for themselves whether to participate in research or not. Also, biobanks are responsible for managing data safety and protection to be able to share information adhering to international standards and compliances. So, as we can see, biobanks play an essential role in biomedical research. It serves like a library for researchers. The time and resources needed to recruit new participants for each research study are greatly reduced because the samples and the corresponding medical information are available in just one place. So, by making sample collection and patient recruitment more efficient, better studies can be performed in a more timely manner, so research can just focus on the research and not in recruiting patients or looking for samples. However, logistically speaking, this could be a nightmare because all the samples and data must be always kept safe and secure. So the staff must be capable of ensuring their own safety and also to protect the privacy of donors and to demonstrate their competency. So biobanks must comply with regulatory guidelines. Another major challenge for the biobanks is that the biological samples are, in most of them, temperature sensitive and may be affected by environmental changes, just like the humidity, light, or the oxygen levels. So biobanks must build infrastructure and deploy monitoring systems to maintain sample quality. So it is necessary also for biobanks to track the samples through their life cycle to avoid any problems like misplacing samples. So by complying with these standards, such as ISO 20387, the biobanks can assure sample quality, integrity, and traceability through the sample life cycle. So now let's understand what is ISO 20387, and let's explore also the challenge associated with this accreditation. First, what is ISO? Well, ISO is the International Organization for Standardization, which publishes international standards to maintain quality, safety, and efficiency in a wide range of industries. ISO recently published a new standard specifically for biobanks, the ISO 20387, in response to the growing role of biobanks within the life science industry. So ISO 20387 covers requirements for all aspects of managing biobanks, including structural, personal, facilities, processes, and equipment. And it also covers quality management systems and sample handling, including collection, preservation, transport, distribution, and traceability of biological materials and data. Numerous standards around the world differ from country to country, so an ISO homogenizes these rules and allows laboratories, and in this case the biobanks, to be evaluated under the same standard. So now let's see why ISO 20387 and why will biobanks want to achieve it. Well, the benefits of a biobank being accredited made any effort worthwhile as it promotes confidence because ISO 20387 was developed to promote confidence in biobanks. It is a simple and clear indicator to all the stakeholders like donors, users, and investors of its capabilities. So it assures that the biobank is taking all reasonable measures to safeguard and ensure that samples collected are being used only for the intent purpose. Also, ISO 20387 assures reliability in the biobank, since researchers must ensure that samples have been properly stored and maintained throughout their life cycle, and ensure that the experimental data coming from these samples are reliable and can be published in any journal, so they don't have any doubt about the samples and this process of the storing. Also, accreditation provides valuable information to the biobank on how it can further improve or streamline its processes, potentially reducing costs. And at the same time, accreditation potentially improves efficiency, minimizing process errors. So now, the third question will be how to achieve it. Well, let's start by saying that ISO 20387 is most of the ISO standards, and the formatting is it's pretty much really equal to some other ISO standards. So the section 4 contains the general requirements for biobanks. The clause 4.1 is about the general requirements. This is about the procedures addressing the biobanking of each type of sample and associated data stored. Also, it includes that the biobanks must document information relevant to the activities, processes, and procedures. So the clause 4.2 is about the impartiality of the staff. The biobank will be the responsible for the impartiality and shall not allow that internal or external pressure to compromise it. The clause 4.3 is about confidentiality. This is the confidentiality between the customers and the biobank, and of course to the staff and all involved in the biobank activities. The confidential information and proprietary rights of the donors, recipients, and users must be protected by the biobank, particularly during the storage and transmission of data. The biobank will inform also the donors how their privacy and their confidentiality are protected. So, biobanks can take advantage of informatic tools such as the biobanking LIMS to securely manage data. LIMS forces staff to authenticate themselves using a two-factor authentication mechanism, a one-time password and a password-based login for secure access. It also locks staff accounts temporarily on accounts for multiple failing login attempts. And well, this increases data security when handling confidential patient or donor information. Also, to safeguard the protect health information of patients, LIMS anonymize sensitive patient data and assign role-based protect health information access rights to staff. So the sensitive masked data can be viewed only by authorized personnel. And each time an authorized person views or makes any changes to this protect health information, the activity is recorded in the audit trail. So this is really useful for audits because sometimes external auditors can request a protect health information audit report at any time. Well, let's talk about the Section 5. Section 5 is about structural and organizational requirements. This is all about the staff and how they fit together in a biobank. It is heavy. It has several procedures to assure the staff competence. The biobank should specify the responsibility, authority, and interrelationship of the personnel who manage, perform, validate, or verify work affected by a banking output. So the staff with a LIMS can be granted or revoked access to activities or information based on the role in the organization hierarchy. And the biobanks with LIMS can assign rights to staff for accessing samples and donor information based on their role. We can see here that the biobank manager has all the rights to view, create, edit, delete, and manage patient and sample information. But other personnel of the staff only can view that information. So with a LIMS, biobanks can assign rights to the staff for several activities. Now let's speak about the Section 6. Section 6 contains resource requirements, personal competence, and training requirements. It contains several procedures related to the training and competence of your staff to manage biobank. Is your staff competent to develop all the biobanking activities? How can you prove it? So the clause 6.3 is about facilities. This includes facilities dedicated to the biobanking activities and monitoring environmental conditions. This is how the biosafety and biosecurity of the biological materials and data are maintained. Also, the separation between areas to prevent cross-contamination. The external processes, it's about when, well, it is when the biobanks decide to use externally provide preservation, storing, or authentication activities, well, these external processes apply. And the equipment requirements. A biobank shall be furnished with or have control access to all equipment required for biobanking. This clause is all about the traceability of your equipment. When was it calibrated? When was the life maintained? Which SOP was used? Well, how can a LIMS help to answer all these questions? Well, to manage, for example, personal training, a LIMS ensures that only trained personnel handle biological specimens, data, and hazardous chemicals and samples. In addition, tasks can be assigned based on the evaluate competencies. We can see here some training topics, who was the trainer, who were the trainees, and if they were competent or not competent. So a LIMS can do all this for you automatically. To manage external supplies, a LIMS can help to manage inventory items purchased from external vendors and their current quantity. You can send reminder alarms to the replenishment of inventory items on time. Here we can see a list of reagents and consumables. We can see also if they are expired or not and who is responsible for them. And to manage equipment, calibration, and maintenance, a LIMS can help to track the calibration, and to manage the maintenance data. It can be configured to notify biobank managers days before the time for the next calibration or maintenance, enable managers to call the technicians and have all the equipment taken care of. So your equipment will be always up to date with the calibration or the corresponding maintenance. Now let's see what ISO 23877 says on its section 7. It's about process requirements. So process requirements since the collecting of biological materials and data. It includes document information requirements. Well, when the biobanks are responsible for the collection of the samples, they shall define and document information related to this collection. Must include date, place, and procedure of collection. Also, this clause established that only qualified and authorized personnel shall collect the biological materials according to defining processes. For the reception and distribution, the biobank shall establish procedures for accessing, receiving, and distribute biological materials and data to their customers. To transfer biological materials and data, the biobank shall maintain critical chains of custody records for all the biological material and the data of the customers too, from point to dispatch to point for receipt. And for traceability, this is for the specimens. The biobank shall ensure traceability of all the materials and data throughout the lifetime. For the preparation and preservation, these are procedures that should be in place for the preparation and preservation of the biological specimens. How does your biobank perform this activity? Well, this clause says everything about it. And for the storage, how do your biobank store the samples? For how long? Your biobank must have procedures for the storage and tracking of all the biological material, such as barcodes. So uniquely, it identifies all the biological materials. The Section 7 also includes quality control of these materials and data. The biobank must establish quality control procedures related to critical activities. Section 7 also speaks about the validation and verification of the methods. The biobank shall use validate or verified methods for critical activities at all stages of the biological material life cycle. This is, for example, when you splice samples. This must be carried out by a validated and documented method, and of course, doing by the trained person. Section 7 also speak about the management of information and data. This clause established that the biobank shall define the required information and data related to the materials and shall have a system in place for tracking. Also speaks about control of non-conforming output. These are procedures for the management of output that do not conform to the SOPs of the biobank. So your biobank shall mitigate the impacts of the non-conformity and implement corrective actions and prevent a recurrence. Also, report requirements. The biobank shall provide a report. It must include the required information as agreed with the recipient. So, any other way to report your results, this is the requirement that you should take in account. And last is the complaint. This is about establishing, documenting, and implementing procedures to receive, evaluate, and make decisions on complaints. So, to manage samples, a LIMS can help you to associate unique barcodes with each sample. Enables you to track the samples at any point in the sample life cycle. This is really helpful because you always will know where is the sample and what barcode it has. So to maintain traceability, LIMS helps you to maintain a trace log and track changes made with a date and timestamp along with the name of the person who made the changes. So you will have a completely traceability of every sample since it gets into your biobank, since it is distributed to the last customer. A LIMS also can help your biobank to mirror its storage inventory and locate stored samples with ease. With this, you can see exactly where your samples are located, in which freezer, in which box. So also you can maintain a simple chain of custody of all samples or aliquots throughout the life cycle to regulate their transfer from one custodian to another. The transfer can be internal or external, and a good link can show the entire genealogy of the sample. Here you can see a sample and who had it and to whom it was transferred, chain of custody, with timestamp, date stamp, and who did it. And the section 8 tells us about the quality management system requirements. Your biobank must have a quality management system that can support and demonstrate the consistent achievement of the requirements of this standard. So this section includes a clause for documented information for its quality management system. So here, the biobank must identify the information that shall be documented and ensure that the document information is appropriately created and updated. Also, it has for quality control a management system documents. Your biobank must control the documents that related to the format of this ISO 20387. How do you control them? Also, the control of your records. Your biobank must establish and maintain legible records and retain records for a period consistent with this contractual and legal obligation. And the actions to address risk and opportunities. The biobank must consider the risk and opportunities associated with their biobank activities and develop, implement, and document action plans to mitigate such risks. Section 8 also have a section for the improvement for the quality management system and for the biobank itself. The biobanks must identify and select opportunities for improvement and implement any necessary actions. Also for correct actions and non-conforming outputs. What should be done if there is a non-conformity? Is an action required? How to decide? Well, here are the procedures for that. Internal audits. All the biobanks should plan, implement, and maintain an internal audit program, including the frequency, methods, responsibilities, planning, and reporting. And the quality management reviews. The biobank's top management shall review its quality management system and plan intervals to ensure its continuous effectiveness. So, a good LIMS manage all the internal and external documents, consent forms, and quality management manuals. Also tracks the revision history of each document to ensure that the staff members access only the latest version. It also provides role-based document access rights to the staff, providing controlled access to the confidential documents. So let's list the benefits of having a LIMS managing your biobank and how it fits with the requirements of an ISO 20387. Well, a good LIMS must secure manage samples, metadata, and donor consent, assign role-based access to authorized users to safeguard, protect health information, anonymize sensitive patient data to safeguard, protect health, store SOPs, control documents and records digitally and securely, track samples and maintain a chain of custody, also manage staff training and their competency, schedule instrument calibration and maintain data, maintain an audit trail, enforce authentication of key activities through digital signatures, and optimize freezer management and sample utilization. So let's see a biobank that was the first accredited under ISO 20387. It was the Cornell Veterinary Biobank. This biobank collects samples from ill and healthy animals, and the samples are then processed, cataloged, and provided to scientists around the world. They have workflow that is most like the one that I showed you on the screen. They have sample collection, acquisition, preparation, preservation, testing, analysis, storage, and distribution. So for the identification, they identify the relevant cases And then when they identify the relevant cases, they make the owners, before the collection, the owners are informed of the requirements for participation, the risk associated with the collection of the samples, and they give a written consent for the collection, storage, and distribution of the samples. So when they are collected, the clinical team and technicians carefully collect the blood or the tissue samples, and they are preserved appropriately to ensure that they are fit for their intent process. So they then there is the registration. The participants and the samples are registered in a biobanking information management system, along with the medical data such as the species, the age, or the clinical diagnosis. So the information is they identified to protect the privacy of the owners and the animals, and they are given a unique ID, like barcode. So those samples are labeled with these barcodes and other necessary information to ensure the traceability. Then the laboratory team process the collected samples and then are typed for long-term storage in appropriate conditions. So they receive the request of evaluations and must include the quantity, type, and specifications of the samples to be requested, as well as the aim of the investigation. So the requests are evaluated and then by using, a biospecimen use committee. And once the request is approved, the biobank withdraws the sample from storage and processes as needed. So then it's delivery, and the samples are then delivered in person or shipped to the recipient under safe and appropriate conditions. So as you can see, quality management is essential in the maintenance and operation of the biobank. Biobank should be able to track each specimen and helps to manage biospecimen quality and the effective use of the sample in the future. So a good quality management plan can lead to higher quality biospecimens and reproducible research results. So the attention to detail, each step of the workflow needs to be documented. So now you have an action plan to meet all the requirements of ISO 20387 and accredited your biobank. You have to set up your processes and define your SOPs. You have to start implementing compliant practices, deploy a LIMS for data and quality management, select an accreditation body, and apply for your accreditation. Then you have to train your staff for internal and external audits, perform an internal audit, address issues identified in the internal audit, participate in the external or a third-party audit will be useful. You have to take corrective action if they are suggested by the auditors, and then you get a credit. So in conclusion, what is ISO 20387 accreditation? Well, as we saw, it was the important regulatory standard. Why do biobanks need it? Well, it increased confidence, increased reliability, and boosts efficiency. How biobanks can follow it with ease? Well, it's very simple. Deploy a LIMS and you can make everything easier. So thank you very much for your time, and let's see if there are questions.